Dave McCluskey a big round of applause.
Thanks. I started a little company back in 2003 called WABA That's named after my two boys, William Asher and Benjamin Avery. First, and if we added the last initial, it'd be Wham Bam. Didn't sound quite as good as WABA. So that's where that came from. But since then, when I was putting the product together, my wife walked in the office and she goes, "I'm pregnant." I'm like, "No, I'm building a company. This can't be." So we have Megan, and she's just fun. I also have a door prize, but you don't get to compete because this guy won. So keep yourself on. Go ahead and build. Yeah, it was no competition. So before I started WABA and making actual tangible product, I made computer games for a company in Boulder called VR1. And we made massively multiplayer online games for companies like Microsoft and Sony over in Japan. We had development studios here in Boulder. We had about 70 people, 85 people at our largest in Boulder. We had 30 to 34 people in Toronto at various times, and a studio in St. Petersburg, Russia, that I also managed with another 35 people and 3 development teams over there. And so I worked with artists, engineers, game designers, a lot of creative types. I taught myself to program before that. I never went to college, so I didn't know about all the mistakes you could make starting a business. So I have those firsthand to talk to you about. And developing those things. We also, being the studio director and actually producing some of the titles, I got involved into the business development aspects and licensing those games to those large corporations. And the games that we actually delivered had, they were innovative in that we could have 200 people flying head-to-head in World War II aircraft over dial-up modems. So, and this was back in 95 and 96. So that's when people had dial-up to reach the internet, no broadband available. And the way we solved that problem was predictive algorithms within the code that helped make up for all those missing bits of data. And that was new and innovative, and it was the first pay-to-play content that Microsoft purchased for their internet gaming zone that's still up today. It's rebranded as something else. But and then we sold the unit for $51 million to a little company, a telco out in Hong Kong called PCCW, Pacific Century Cyberworks. And Richard Lee is one of the sons of the China's richest individual, and he runs PCCW. So I used to go over there and present to him, and he was a pilot, so he loved the flying games. And that was part of the win, but we made a bundle of money off of that deal. It wasn't me personally, because I was one of the doers instead of the people that owned. And I realized the value of owning intellectual property during this process, the 7 years of making computer games. And I decided I was looking for something else where I could actually, rather than assigning the rights to the company of everything I was creating, I wanted to own that. And the way to do that was to go out on my own. Along the way, I had a child, the first one, Will. Happens that he was smart. And he did something that started WABA when he was 3. But to give you an idea of the way he looks at the world, it's unique. When he was just starting to talk, I remember we were out in the driveway and getting him in the car seat. He looks up and he sees the geese flying overhead, and he says, "Triangle." He's one. He's making those abstractions, so he's a bright one. Will, when he was playing with Tinker Toys, the wooden set that my wife had purchased, he took a block with a hole in it, something like that one, and he slid it over the rod, spun it around, kept building, started grabbing other things, other toys as well. And while I'm watching him play, it's one of the things we did in game design, was we were always trying to extend the gameplay, make it more immersive, do something a little bit better than the competition. So what I did was I added a surface to that space between the rods and the connectors. And that was the first innovation I made. So it was simple. Once I enclosed that space, it was the same thing that we did in 3D modeling, which is where you start with a wireframe structure of a block or a house or a car or person, and you texture that with artwork. And so that's what we were looking at doing with Tinker Toys. What I eventually ended up doing was coming up with a unique, novel, and innovative way of doing that and how it helped the play pattern and steered it forward. So the patent's been issued on that finally. Took a while because Tinker Toys has been in the public domain since the 40s. It was invented back in 1913 by Charles Péju, who was watching a child play with pencils and thread spools. And he built quite a little career out of it. And I thought, why haven't they done anything new with this system? It's such a great system. I can build helicopters, I can make castles, I can do whatever I want. And I looked at what Lego did. By the way, I still own the Legos that I had when I was a kid. It's all I played with growing up. They say patent pending on them, tells you how old I am. But I took the ideas that they had to make theme-based sets and came up with a line of toys that I was going to present. And sorry, that's a little blown out, but those are blueprint drawings that I was actually taking over to Hasbro. Because one of the things our game company did was we made email games and other online games for Hasbro. And the game unit, I was used to going in there and presenting new product ideas and securing contracts to go build those products for them. And I thought, well, I've got an idea for the toy side. I'll use all my connections there and walk in the door, present, see if they're interested for the Tinker Toy brand. I had no desire whatsoever to start making product. I wanted to license it from day one. And so it was simple. Come up with some innovative ways to extend the play pattern. And I touched on one of those, which is adding a surface. But then I came up with characters that went with it. And those were unique and novel enough to justify, and Tinker Toys was about to be 100 years old. It was a good time for them to get involved, I thought. Meanwhile, they were doing a brick-based building toy trying to compete with Lego, and they failed miserably on that. It was back out of Walmart after the first season it was in. But they didn't want to see my innovations. So I went back home and thought, they didn't even take a look at it. What do I do now? And there was a toy show coming up. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do the easy stuff, which is what I know how to do. Put a prototype together. I used to sell a lot of stuff that didn't exist in the game space because it was all software, all vapor. This was easier because I could actually show something. And design the prototypes, secure the intellectual property, apply for the patents for the IP that I did before I actually presented to Hasbro, and go and pitch that concept, of course. And it says, earn royalties by a boat, too. And I got the rejection, really, in October of 2003 as a timeline. And then I got it to market in November of 2004. And it was a lot of work for one person, I did the entire thing. I did all the package design, I designed the website, I wrote the software to run my business, and I did all the CAD modeling as well. I designed all the building guides. So I was a one-man show, and I was calling on all of my skills that I had learned in developing games to do that. I wouldn't recommend that path for somebody else, especially the part where you write the software to run your business, because I'm still building on that system. It's great, it solves so many problems for us right now in our enterprise, and we use it internationally because I built it to run in a browser. And it interfaces with our accounting system, so it sits in front of it. It's lovely. Everybody, all the salespeople can access it. We have, my investors can access the information on a daily basis. They can look it up on their iPhone. So it was the right idea, just don't do it. But along the way, so Wobble was born when really Hasbro rejected things. And I said, okay, there's a trade show over here in New York in February, and that's called the International Toy Show. It's kind of a misnomer, but it's more a domestic show just for toys. And they rent out the entire Javits Center in New York. If you've been there, it's a pretty big place. And I secured by rendering out an image of what the product would look like. I convinced the people that were running the show that I was a toy maker, just with an rendered image. I'm like, smoke and mirrors, this is good. I can do that, the product doesn't exist. I still didn't have a manufacturer. I didn't know how much it was gonna cost. I didn't know anything. But I did have some monies set aside to explore this area, and my wife and I agreed, and that's the important thing. You gotta get your spouse's agreement before you start on anything along these lines. And I started looking for a manufacturer. That was the first step I took. And I had been traveling over to China. I was familiar with working with them. I worked in Russia. Great people in both areas. And I kept hitting dead ends. I would send my ideas over to different toy manufacturers in China, and they were all coming up dry. Eventually, I was having coffee at a cafe in Boulder. I ran into a very old friend who had a patent in the space of skateboards, and his manufacturer made the introduction, and that's the manufacturer I'm still using today. Andrew So, who runs the factories, he owns 3 in China. I adopted him as much as he adopted me as a partnership. The reason why I took to him right away is he spent 3 years fighting for my friend's patent against the people that made the Razor scooter, because he was making the Razor scooters back at the time, and they were stealing my friend's ideas and just incorporating them in some new product. And he walked away from all of that business. He said, it's not the right thing to do. So that was one, I wanted somebody I could trust. And when I heard that story from my friend, it was like, I don't care what you charge me, as long as you're not going to sell my product in mainland China without my knowledge, we're going to do business for a long time. Also, the quality of the products that he delivered is exceptional. So, and that's important for the product line that I was delivering. If a construction toy doesn't work, it's done. It's got to work right out of the box. So the tolerances on all of the parts had to be there. Lego goes so far as to, they have all sorts of special things, and I've studied Lego up and down. To be able to deliver that clutch factor, the willingness of those pieces to stay together. There's competitors out there, a lot of competitors from that brick-based space, but it's Lego that rules it because of the quality of the product at the end. And they charge premium for it too. There's not much plastic in those boxes. Once again, I did everything starting a company. Somehow we also had a child in the process. And I designed the booth. I organized all the, how was this going to ship to retail, because I needed pricing on that. Working with Andrew in China was exceptional because he was able to steer me a little bit. But I had never imported products before. I was suddenly going to be ordering in container load quantities. I had to figure out how to get a bond to import, all the product liability insurance, everything. Had to go through quite a bit. And then, of course, showing up at a trade show where they take orders, I needed order forms. And I needed to have my margins in place by the time I got there. And I accomplished all of that in 3 months, which was how I lost my hair. This was year 1. Actually, I went to the trade show. This is a look of pallets. That's not coming in. That's actually going out. And it was exceptional. I went to the trade show. I had a couple friends come with me because I knew I couldn't stand there for 4 days talking endlessly. And my volunteers did great. We took orders from well, we had Toys R Us come in. They didn't buy that year, but they bought later on. And then FAO Schwartz and a bunch of other people. I still had no product. I was sitting there with a prototype of a castle, and I didn't know the cost, the actual deliverable costs. I had estimates in mind, and I had given myself some margins to work within. And so as soon as the trade show was done, I had a handful of orders, and I booked a flight to China to go solve the problem on how to deliver it. So I was over there, and we sat down for a couple days, went over all of the requirements, and got the fees passed across the table on what the cost of the products would be, which was within 3 or 4% of what I had estimated. Pretty good. Andrew, once again, was really helpful early on. And then called my wife and said, okay, it's going to be this much money for us to cut molds. So, and it can be pretty pricey, but I priced it domestically, and it was 5 times the cost to do it here, which was really prohibitive to starting a business in the States. I had to go there. And then I had to learn things like consumer product safety, and that all these products need to be tested before they end up on the shelves. And that's become a bigger issue in the last couple of years. Mattel slipped up, and a few other companies have slipped up. They have their own testing labs that they own, and they put their toys through them. And so it's pretty easy to see how this can happen. But they had lead show up in the paint on one of the Cars toys at the time that movie was being released. That caused a huge ruckus in the toy industry, and they recalled millions of products and required all of us as manufacturers to go back and do much more detailed testing much more frequently. The regulations on us as a small manufacturer are higher than Mattel because they still own their own toy testing labs and are able to get away with things that we're not. But they had the recall, and we haven't. We've never had an issue, fortunately. Nobody's ever choked or anything on any of my products, and I'm elated at that. We're now selling to more than 50 countries, and we have an office in Sweden. We do distribution throughout Europe and Sweden, and then we own a facility up in Loveland now. So, but back to my story. This was actually an order, the initial order from Amazon that was heading out the door for the season. 19 pallets. I was like, I'm in heaven. But moving the boxes was no fun. What I didn't, I was like, invoices, once again, I had my system kicking out stuff, but there was a lot for me to learn about the accounting side of the business. I've been in product development and delivered a lot of software, but not really on that side. I still don't like accounting, but you have to do it. Okay, I'm gonna do the smart thing. I'm gonna go the 4-hour route because I got a lot to tell you. I'm kidding. So I've been in business now for 7 years. We're in 50 countries, 1,600 domestic retailers carry Superstructs and our other brands that I'll talk about in a second. Toys R Us is kind of a mid-tier mass marketer. We're not in Target or Walmart in the stores, but we're online with them. So you can buy our products there. Amazon, of course, and through our own websites that I authored, because I won't let anybody else do it. I have a lot of awards that we've won. Even though we're innovating, we're built on something that Charles Péju did in 1913. The fact that we're bringing a little bit of directed play, but also so many more options for creativity in our sets. We've won a lot of awards in the toy and education industries. Product was just on Good Morning or the Today Show because we won the Oppenheim Toy Portfolio Platinum Award. And lastly, and probably most importantly, I'm an esteemed member of the Council of Luminaries here at the DaVinci Institute. I'm still waiting for my, which I think is really a branch of the Illuminati, right? I don't have my tattoo yet. And when are you going to come up with double O status? Because I want that. Okay. One of the other speakers, I'm sorry, I forget their name, but they were talking about how difficult it is along the way. And it's true. The buyers, they're all bastards and crocodiles. I mean, it's just, it's been fighting tooth and nail to maintain margin, to be competitive with the other products, and still deliver play value to the consumer. The moms, they don't want a toy that's going to be a fad, go away next year. At least our moms don't. And offer that ability for the child to really create their own story, their own toy when it comes down to it. So it's got to be open-ended. And that's what our whole brand is about. So we now have 5 brands within WabaFun. Superstructs is where I started. I merged with another company a couple years, 5 years in, out of Fort Collins, and we're now known as WabaFun because we had the better presence. And they brought to the table a licensing agreement with people in Sweden that make moon sand. And the people, Jonas and Stefan in Sweden, they're great guys, mad scientists, working at the chemical bonding layer on their compounds. And they're making new products. This one's called Bubber. It is that's the one we're playing with here. I'll toss it to somebody who can catch it. Yeah. Here. This material is, sorry, I'm not supposed to walk in front. So it's made from a hollow ceramic bead, about 20 microns in diameter. And it has a binder on it. And that binder has no water in it. So it never dries. There's also an antimicrobial ingredient in here, which means we can put it in the classroom and it can be there all year long. It won't stick to anything, except for my shirt. No. and it never dries. It's antimicrobial, like I said, so those germs don't get passed on. And it has really amazing properties. One of them is, once you put it together, it really wants to stay together. So it'll be like this, in a year from now, but then you can come back and put your finger right into it. We sell this to the education, medical, and therapy markets. We also sell it to the crime scene guys. They make impressions of car tires and shoes with this material. They make a positive out of it using dental stone. So they'll take a shoe and push it in there and to get the exact marks. If you push you can look at your fingerprint in there. 20 microns is really small. So you can get some great impressions. And they've never had a material behave like this. They couldn't drive a car through anything else. So it's a toy, and we're catching bad guys, which is pretty cool. The other thing that's funny about this, I think the word is tixotropic. It's the material that wants to, it behaves in a, well, let me just show you. It doesn't deform. You can't even tell where it hit. It's really wild. It has some phenomenal things to it. So we're doing what I've done. This is like Play-Doh. It doesn't extrude like Play-Doh. Press it down, it wants to compact. So we have to come up with new play patterns for it. And I've gone very, very simple. Once again, I want to be allow the child to create what they want. And so we have sets that involve geometric cookie cutters for them to create their own designs out of it. And we offer up a lot of creative designs. And it comes in 6 different colors. It's, of course, been tested. And you can eat it, tastes god-awful, but it's safe. So that's Bubber. And then moon sand. How many people know moon sand? It was heavily advertised. Yes, there's one. You probably had to sweep it up. Yeah. Moon sand is the sand that behaves like wet beach sand, but it never dries out either. And that was their first product over in Sweden, our partners. It's great for a mass play area. We sell a lot to children's museums and a lot of museums and education. Our sales on Moonsand, even though it's been out for 5 or 6 years now, they're up 19% this year just within our markets. It's being taken out of Walmart and Target too, because Spin Master, who has the rights, they're the world's 4th largest toy company, they have the rights to Moonsand in the mass market, so Target, Walmart, et cetera. They can't sell into education. It's a fuzzy line. So that's one of our battles, but they're taking it off of those shelves, which will help us. So we're excited about that. And then Pinklets. This is one of our best-selling sets, and it's partially because there's very few items available in the building category for girls. I had a girl. It greatly influenced the design. In fact, she's one of the fairies in there, Megan. And so it'll never be discontinued now, right? Because she's on it. And so this sells like gangbusters. And if you feel these products, they're just chock full. Here, pass that around. I mean, it's a good package, and we spend a lot of money on the quality of the product we deliver. If you pick up a Lego box, it's mostly air. Not to talk ill of them, because I still love them, but it's a lot of air. And then the architects. The architects are new. Well, I started to work on story for our brands over the last couple of years, and I worked with Ron Solomon, who wrote Saved by the Bell, wrote and produced that show, if anybody remembers that. He wrote the backstory to the architects. There's 6 architects. Actually, there's a dozen, because you can use the pieces to make other characters. These guys are muses to the greatest designers and inventors throughout history, so there's a real rich platform for us to build on moving forward. And these retail at $10 at Toys R Us. Once again, there's a lot of play value in there, certainly at $10.
What age range?
Everything's 3 plus.
3 plus?
Yeah, because we don't, we do have some small parts that fit in a choke tube, so we can't go below 3. And
what makes it edible versus, let's say, Play-Doh not edible?
actually, you can eat this. I wouldn't recommend it. It's glass. It'll just pass right through you. They're round ceramic spheres. They're just going to pass right through you. It just tastes, yeah, it's ceramic is glass. So it tastes terrible. You won't do it twice. Play-Doh is, Play-Doh's, of course, it's a $100 million brand for Hasbro. They do an incredible amount of that. Play-Doh is made from wheat, so their pricing fluctuates based on that commodity. And kids with a gluten intolerance cannot typically play with Play-Doh. And that's one advantage that we have as well, because there's no food allergies. Right? Let's see. So, Playtime's changing. You probably know that, right? So when I walked in here, you were playing with an iPad. You had an iPad in front of you. And my background's in computer games. And I can't get my own kids away from the flat panel devices in our house. One rule that I've trying to implement really for my own kids is a portion of their time, up to 30%, has to be creating on the devices, not just passively absorbing. And that's a big thing. You know, what did you make today? So I have them show me. There's some great things out there on the computers. Anybody ever hear of Minecraft? Are you familiar with Minecraft? No? Yes, Thomas, you would. Minecraft, to me, is the 21st century Lego. You can go and create incredible worlds on your own using the tools in this very basic looking world. And it's wildly popular. It was developed by 2 developers in Norway that were tired of not getting their products to market in the big companies. And they have sold 20 million subscriptions at like 40 euros a pop. You know, they're doing really well. Minecraft is a fabulous tool, for open-ended play. Once again, it's allowing the kids to create and socialize in an online world. And it's relatively inexpensive because there's no ongoing subscription. So we're experiencing age compression. The kids are getting more information faster than they ever have before. And they have less time to play with their actual physical toys. Yes, it's a great question. The question is, can you get a patent on a different use for an item? If I can distill it down, would that be?
Yeah.
Okay. And I believe the answer might be no. The gentlemen that were here before, Tom, and they would better be able to answer that question. I know that you can't get a patent on just using a different material in an object. Like there were panels made before for my initial application on Superstructs. In fact, they made Hasbro, not Hasbro, the people that owned Tinker Toy at the time, had a kit out with wooden panels and knives for the kids to go carve knives in toys, to go carve, times have changed, to go carve the sides so that you could make that. And eBay was a great place for me to do my historical research on the history of this particular item. But I couldn't just say, because I'm using a new material, that I deserve a patent. It had to be a unique, surprising, and unforeseen benefit, really, of using that material in this way.
There's a maybe. The way I understand it, I'm not a patent attorney, I just read a lot of books on it. There's means patents for a utility patent where you define the structures. There's also method patents. And so if that material would be a key in achieving a new method to do something, you probably could patent the method the way I understand it, making use of that new material.
So for anybody who didn't hear Daryl's answer, I'll try and summarize. It's you may be able to seek patent protection on a method of using a material in a unique way. We are selling the material in the medical market as for therapy. Once you start playing with it, you want to continue typically, or a lot of people do. It does stick to somebody if it dissolves in water, so if you have sweaty palms, I don't know if anybody does, you might get a little bit on there.
So you have an FDA clearance, I'm guessing? Or?
We have all of the toy safety certification, so it's what's the abbreviation for the documents? Yes, we've done all of the appropriate certifications for using the material with children 3+, and but specifically for medical, it's not like anything you're ingesting, or we don't have to go that far.
Yeah, you would have to do the
Right.
clinical trials.
But-
just for
right.
toxic exposure in order to get a patent. But
Yes.
not this.
Excellent. I don't want to go there. I'm inventing something new. So with internet, I touched on a few things. Of course, everybody's familiar with the Wii, the smartphones, everybody's holding them, tablets, the Microsoft Kinect. Anybody own a Kinect? No? Wow, you Luddites. Okay, the Microsoft Kinect, if you don't know, is a product that was released by Microsoft for their Xbox last year. And they released it in November or late October. In November, by March, they had sold 15 million units. And the Kinect, what it does is it allows hands-free gameplay. And because it's tied into their Xbox, it's all about gameplay. How that works is really cool. They licensed some technology from some smart people over in Israel that use infrared light to determine distance. And off of that distance of the objects and people within the field of view, they're able to extrapolate moving objects and people, and they have special programs to track joints in individuals. They have facial recognition. They also have technology for doing voice to help locate who it is that's talking within the environment. And all of that, when it's put together, allows you to stand up and jump and have your character in the virtual environment behave the same way. So if you're playing tennis, you don't have to hold anything. You could just whack it. How was my form? Did you like that? So with the Kinect, gameplay is coming out of the virtual world. With the Wii, you know, their new device is a flat panel device that's coming out that connects to the Wii as well, where you can take this and we can now see the world all around us. It's like augmented reality, if you will, where we can superimpose other things in there. So the Wii is also coming off of those devices. There are a couple toys out this year that use there's one in particular that uses the iPad that Disney just released, where you take a Cars keeps coming up, on top of the app, and it's able to sense the car, the toy, and you can drive it around the environment. And the headlights work and all sorts of other things. And so they have some technology that senses that car on top of it, which is pretty marvelous. And so this is an area that I've been fascinated in for a while, and it's time for us to innovate as well. Yes? The question is, didn't Microsoft open up the application, the Kinect application to other developers? And the answer is yes, they did. This summer they released an SDK for academics to start using and studying how the Kinect can be used in a learning environment. And then also they will be releasing, they have said they'll release a commercial version for people to develop applications using the Kinect device. And that's something that we will explore. There are also programmers built their own tools, open source tools, for reading the data streams from the Kinect. And there are a library of applications out there, that even in the medical field, where they're manipulating objects on the screen just by waving their hand. It's pretty exciting.
We'll start doing surgery that way, right?
Right. So with all this age compression, less time for kids to actually build things, they're drawn to those screens. The education, there's more technology coming to the classrooms. There's a lot of resistance there because it takes a big system a while to change, but the early adopters are definitely in the classrooms. There's innovative ways that they're using smart boards. You can now hook up your Kinect to a Pico display and project an image onto your hand and use this as a touch screen, just your skin or any material whatsoever. We just filed for a provisional patent application. So this is figure one. I'll just show you that. I won't tell you how it works, but I've come up with a way, a system and a method, to identify and authenticate real-world objects using infrared. So the reason why this is important, or at least I think it's important, is that I want to make sure the user is using my object. I make commercial goods, and so with those commercial goods, I want to protect them. So as an example, let's say I ask, there's a triangle here, so if I ask a child to make a triangle, they could hold up a wooden block that was a triangle or cut one out of a piece of paper. But what if I wanted them to make it out of this? Because that's a better learning experience when the kids are actually touching it and using it themselves. So if I need them to do that, right now with the Kinect technology, it was just detect the triangle and let you go on. But to authenticate that the item is the item that you want it to be, that material itself, there's applications for there well outside of what I'm thinking, hopefully. But we're going to develop programs for the educational market that will use these technologies. And we're doing funding on this right now. And so that's been an exciting thing. So rather than doing everything myself, this round we're going for VC. And so we're raising $3 million in the initial round. And yeah, so just to touch on the points, make sure I don't miss anything. We're able to identify and authenticate real-world objects for use in a virtual environment. Sorry, did you have a question? No? The other thing is we're able to detect objects using my ideas that are partially hidden or partially obscured. I can still know that it's back there. I can still know the shape of that object if it's been preloaded in the software. So this is all sorts of subtle little things that are important for gameplay, important for, because children don't typically, put everything the right way you need it to be put back, right? So, so all of those things are benefits. And it'll save on the processing requirements from the CPU to actually recognize those things. So all those are the benefits that are spelled out in the claims section of our application. Yeah, 3.7, see? I'm not the numbers guy, I'm the product guy. And we have some partners that I've worked with during Superstructs and putting the other thing together. Some of them are coming over to the new company, which is called Relevant Play. And then we have also our initial commercial partnership in the largest young childhood, oh God, what's the way I want to, it's Learning Resources is the name of the company, and they deliver most of those products in your child's classrooms. So, and they are desperate to try and remain relevant as a company moving forward themselves. So that's why the name Relevant fits so nicely. We're being relevant for the kids. It's what they're gravitating toward in behaving in a virtual environment, reporting that back to the learning community, but also there's a lot of money in that space right now, which is also attractive. So we're building an SDK, software development kit, that will be able to get out the door. It'll have actual physical material. And then we'll develop our own line of educational products to put out in the market. Again, we're going to stay in education because we hope to license the big stuff to the big players with better reach. So that's where we're going. We will be using our existing brands in the new company. But it will not be responsible. The new company will only be designing the products. It won't be doing the distribution. That'll be my current group. So it's a nice little marriage there. We own a 22,000 square foot building up in Loveland for a domestic distribution and facilities over in Sweden as well for Europe. So, questions? Yes?
By the way, I like your little stream of consciousness stuff at the very bottom of the slide, pale blue. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
But the one that really kind of piqued my interest, the one that says any lack of knowledge can be compensated for by checkbook or perseverance.
Right.
Can you share some of the lessons you learned from the field? It seems like you.
Well, right out of the gate, I didn't know how to bring product into the country. I was talking about delivering containers. And my big clients were wanting the product there for the holidays, and I was late in delivering it for the holidays. We got it there before mid-November, but it was just in time. And so part of my inexperience was being able to negotiate, being able to go in and figure out how much product I actually had to fly in, right? Because I had to get it there for key customers, that cost. And how much I could actually put on the water and wait a month for it to arrive. UPS was more than happy to come into my basement where my office was, sit down and explain those costs to me. And as long as I had a checkbook, everything went smoothly. The lack of knowledge in that area cost me a lot out of the gate. We've since been able to, because we bring in containers every month now, we are negotiating our rates all the time and trying to find a better one. And that's just one example. On the legal side of things, I wrote my provisional patent application for Superstructs myself because I spent several months while I was still at VR1, don't tell anybody, doing all the research on it, on how to go about doing that. And so I took it to a patent attorney before I filed. He deleted 2 sentences, and then we filed. So I did pretty good. Yes?
Question, if I may. You had partners and associates helping you on your path to all this. How did you find the kindred spirits for your business, so to speak, and how did you fold them into the process?
The question is, how did I find the partners that I'm with, and how did I fold them into the process and the vision that I have for the company? WABA Fund was all about play value. It was about delivering something of value to the children, to help them learn and benefit, the way I did from playing with Legos. And that's what I was trying to communicate with something that had been in the market for nearly 100 years. So it was, I had to be pretty progressive and persistent in that. The people gravitate to you at trade shows when they see a quality product. When you put yourself out there, they start coming to you, and I was fortunate in that way. It was actually Jeff, my business partner, up in our facilities up in Loveland. He met me at a trade show for the therapy market that was here in Colorado, because he was selling those compounds to therapists, the moon sand and some other products as well. And his backers that he had to fund his company were looking for additional intellectual property, because they realized they were just a distributor. They needed some IP if their relationship with the people in Sweden went south. We brought in, here's a funny story. So it took 2 years for us from that point of saying, hey, we should probably do something together, to actually getting an agreement in place. And part of that was they weren't ready as an organization. They were young, and I wasn't convinced I needed them and that I couldn't do everything on my own. Fortunately, I made that step. And it took us a while to come to terms on that. On the first day of being the joint operations, it was January 1st, 2008. And I was in San Francisco on my way to the factory in China. And Jeff calls me before I get on the long flight. By the way, you can watch the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy and still have 7 hours on that flight. So it's a long flight, and I've done it too many times. But he calls me and he says, congratulations, welcome aboard. We're excited to be your partner. You know, we're looking forward to what we're going to do. We're going to blah, 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 blah. He's the business development guy. I just want to tell you right now, we need to find new partners. That was day one. And the reason why was they were all about, milking what we had in place, not expanding and growing. So the people that we were involved with. It took us 8 months. We did another transaction. And that was right when the credit markets all froze. That was a brilliant time to close a deal. So when, all our financing dried up. And, but we brought in another strategic partner, and then we brought the Swedes in as a partner as well. So we divvied things up, and that's a great way to get money out of your business, is start to carve it up a little bit, because the margins that we have on the existing products weren't, rewarding my wife for the torture she was enduring. So yeah, it's a challenge, but I've got some great people. And with Relevant Play, I'm going back to some people that I worked with in technology in the game world. I just happened to bump into a VC when I was in Breckenridge, watching the bicycle race come through town. And he said, what are you doing? And I told him, and he goes, will you come see me? And now it looks like we're going to close. So that's good. He's one of the people that'll be involved. And then we have some others that are lined up too. So, and we're looking for people that bring something else to the table besides money as well. So their relationships are key. Yes.
How long was it that and how much money of your own did you spend before you got to the point and where were you in the process that you were able to bring this to investors?
For Relevant Play. The question is, how long have I been in the process before I could bring the idea of my company and the products to investors? Are we talking about the current effort for Relevant Play? The original. The original company, I delivered the actual product. I was at retail. I had the patent applications in. I already had a warehouse. I had the systems in place before I talked about partnering with anybody else. And how much money did I put into that? It was $60,000 for the initial set of molds, and then, tens of thousands to actually, it was about $45,000 for the first container of product, my costs, and then, throw in the months of time and effort, what value to put your own time in. That was a little over a year's worth of effort there, and also all the transportation costs. The show costs $10,000 in New York, $10,000 for this. The money goes out really quickly. It goes very, very quickly. So, $150,000. Probably to be able to deliver the product to market, which was a lot less than $250 just for the molds. So, all right, thank you so much.
All right.